Ready.
Got open man. DJ Moore. End zone. Touchdown. Touchdown Bears.
I am Jeff Joniak.
Blitz is on. Down he goes. Oscar.
What was it like playing for Coach Ditka?
I don't want to answer any questions like that.
Pressure coming. He's in big trouble. Down he goes. Montez Sweat.
And
Now, Bears Etc., brought to you by Miller Lite with the voices of the Bears, Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer.
Nearing kickoff between the Bears and the Buffalo Bills, a week after a weekend of nostalgia in Canton, Ohio, with the enshrinements of Steve McMichael, Devin Hester, and Julius Peppers. Welcome in, everybody. I'm the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak, with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer. This episode of the Bears Etc. podcast brought to you by Miller Lite. The work is getting done, what needs to be done yet, but of most importance is that Saturday noon kickoff in Orchard Park, New York, against the Buffalo Bills, expecting to see starters play. As of this taping, we don't know how many snaps for the starting quarterback and the starting offense and defense, but we do expect them to play, and we're excited about that. Tommy, how you feeling?
You know, I think there's an extra edge of seriousness that leads up to the first preseason game now in the NFL, especially after you play in the Hall of Fame game and none of the starters did play. Because every time you put what you perceive as a starter on the field, it means the evaluation begins. And so now you're, if a guy that's pretty secure in your position, you've been around the NFL a little while, are you still up to the responsibilities that it takes to play your position? Are you a young guy that has just come aboard a football team as a free agent or as a draft choice? And are you living up to the expectations that the general manager and the head coach and the team has set for you? And there's every snap is serious, whether you're in practice or in the games itself.
On the podium Wednesday, Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator, his weekly visit, all the touch points, the media asking questions of all the hot topics. Certainly, it's always going to be about Caleb Williams, the offensive line, Nate Davis. We got a chunk of it from the podium. We'll get Tom's reaction. But here's Shane Waldron this week at Hallis Hall.
Yeah, I think as the O-line has some different moving parts right now as we try out different combinations, work with different things, that I think in the long run will help us for the full season when you get that depth built up right there. And then for Caleb, that allows him to take leadership roles with different guys that are in there, work on his communication with different groups, different centers, different guards that have rotated in, tackles. And so I think all that does is help us as a team build our communication, whether it's player to player, with the quarterback to the O-line or vice versa with the O-line to the quarterback. And we know that's going to be so important as the season goes, especially when it comes to the protections and the of everything that we do and how we want to attack a defense. So it's been great for us, and it'll be great down the road in the season.
Basically what you're saying is regardless if it's the prototypical line with everyone healthy or with moving out, it's both a learning experience for Caleb.
Yeah, I think it helps with his communication, lets him learn different guys, his players that are around him, what the different styles are, and how to communicate with those guys, inevitably in a game, knowing that, hey, there might be different players that play throughout the season.
With that O-line in a little bit of flux, is there any concern playing him behind it in Saturday's game?
I think we got a good depth. I think Simo and Haas have done such a good job of moving those guys around, building that depth. We got frontline players that can play at a starter level. We got guys that are playing with that second group and some of the guys rotating in a third group that can all operate at a high level, and the trust is there. And I think we can operate, as an offense, depending on how we mix and match different guys when we get to that point, talking about tomorrow what the preseason is going to look like.
We didn't see many big connections today by the offense. I mean, just from my amateur eyes, it didn't look like a good day for the offense. What did you see from the offense today?
Yeah, I saw DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Travis Homer. I can go through a group of those explosive plays, and so feeling good about those, knowing that, hey, some of the shots down the field, didn't connect on some of those, but the thing we love and shows up in the Hall of Fame game, when you talk about different points in training camp and guys that get the ball in their hand and run after catch ability, and to me, those are the things that really come to life as an offense grows in the games, in practice, not getting frustrated if we don't connect on a deep shot, knowing, hey, we've stretched the defense vertically right there, but then we can come back and play efficient football, connect drives together, and then get the ball in our playmakers' hands.
How close is Caleb on those deep? Because we saw all the deep shots, but I mean, is he close on those?
Yeah, I think, and like every one of those that happen, it takes all 11. So, sometimes it can be a little bit cleaner in a protection look. Sometimes we might be a little bit cleaner in a route look. Sometimes it might be the quarterback being a little bit cleaner with his feet. So, every one of those plays are individual when it comes down to, the why of a play not connecting perfectly. And so for us as an offense right now, that's where we're striving to get, all 11 every single time we get to one of those, deeper shot plays and giving us a chance. And then like Caleb did today, Tyson did a great job of it today. If the defense puts a umbrella over the coverage structure right there, finding a check down, finding a completion, and staying efficient.
So you did not watch Hard Knocks yet?
I have not yet.
We saw a lot of Caleb when something would go wrong, come and talk to you or talk to Eberflus or kind of talk through what happened.
Mhm.
Are you seeing him making those corrections?
Yes, I think his daily improvement has been great to see. I think he's so competitive. He cares so much about being great, and he puts in the hard work. So it's not a surprise that each day he gets a little bit better, and some of the stuff as he grows within the offense and within some of the different levels of communication from the coach to quarterback to the world of huddling and those things. Seeing his daily improvement and making strides and never taking it's not a one step forward, 2 steps back type of process. It's been hey, if there's been a bump in the road the next day, for example, I think as an offense, we didn't take care of the football well enough 3 days ago. I guess it would be with the players' day off. And then we come back the next day, next practice, and we're battling. Our defense does a great job of getting after the football, and we play a clean game from the quarterback position, all 4 quarterbacks on through. So seeing one thing, one day, and then that ability to correct and make it better the next day and keep stacking those days is what we're seeing.
At this point, another thing you see in the show is just because there's so many cameras on him and you're picking up audio, he might throw and, or just kind of like, the frustration element of learning and growing. Like, how do you see his demeanor as he deals with the inevitable, challenges that come with training camp and getting ready for week 1?
Yeah, I think he has a very even-keeled demeanor, but it's also a game of emotion. So there's going to be some instant reactions. There's going to be some times where, everyone that's out there, all the players that are out there are so competitive. The coaches are so competitive. There might be an instant reaction of, didn't get that one. And then how quickly can you bounce back right now for the next play? And that's what I've really seen out of Caleb and seen out of, all the young guys that we've had. Rome's had similar things where you see those guys, for young players, their ability to learn and grow from each play and then move right on to the next play, I think has been something, going back to the previous question, that's helped in their growth and will continue to help in their growth and development.
At this point in training camp, where do you feel most confident in what you guys are doing as an offense?
I think right now with the level of communication from where it started in OTAs to where we're at now in training camp, I think when you get a new group, some new coaches, some coaches that were here, and we're figuring out everyone's rhythm, figuring out our new players, the style of players, that communication and our operation, seeing the growth that it's made every single day and being on pace for, getting ready for that regular season opener is something that we're proud of as a staff. And I know the players have put in a ton of work to get to the level where we're at right now.
You talked about the depth of the offensive line, and you're obviously pleased with that, but how much longer can you guys go in this camp without, unless you guys do know, without knowing who the center is and who the right guard is?
Yeah, I think for us, competition is going to bring out the best in everybody. And I think every single competition that's involved in training camp has its own individual timeline. And for us right now, because those guys are operating at such a high level at center, and then Ryan's been able to go in at the guard spot with Nate dealing with a little bit of injuries right there, it's been a smooth transition as far as the communication. So makes you feel confident that we can go ahead and keep participating or keep playing the way we are right now. And then when that time is right, it'll be right, and we don't have to set an exact time on it. It's going to obviously be before that opening kickoff there on the opening game. But right now, I feel good about where we're at, and because of the professional level of those guys that are competing at those spots.
Do you think we'll continue to see Velus out of the running back position?
Yeah, this has been a great chance for Velus. He did, he's done an excellent job as a core special teams player. Did a great job at receiver, getting to know the offense, and then for us, just seeing a guy that's explosive with the ball in his hand, trying to figure out different ways that potentially could be during the season or during these preseason games to check him out at running back, and knowing he's had a little bit of that in his history. And then for us, just as a staff, feeling it, the best thing for him is to do it in a block right now. So really taking this block where we get a chance to get him in the running back room with Chad Morton, and knowing Chris had done such a great job with him at receiver, and now letting him show his skill set there, and then be able to come back after this Bills game here, and then reconvene and see what the next step would be. Again, with trying to maximize his skill set and also putting him in that best position to showcase that.
You talk with the extra weeks you guys have with camp. How helpful was that for Caleb to get that muscle memory? You're talking about this growth.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I know how difficult it is to process as a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
How much? I mean, you probably just have to do it, right? There's like the other film stuff helps, but really just being in there.
Yeah, I think the benefit of being in early, obviously the practices, obviously the meetings, but then I think being able to be on the sideline for the Hall of Fame game and watch Tyson and Brett operate, Austin get in there, and have a chance to see the defensive structure, hear the play calls, process it from the sideline, but get a chance to see what that game action's actually like, and getting a feel for knowing that our goal in practice is to make this as hard as we can. So that way, when the game time comes around, it's slowed down a little bit. You got some TV timeouts, you got all the different things where it's not as chaotic as practice in terms of right onto the next drill, right onto the next situation. Got to check a scoreboard that's in the corner there. So all those things combined, I think, is a huge help to be able to be in early for the quarterback position, and then be able to excel from there.
You've talked about Caleb's growth and what you're seeing from all 11, but given the rickety nature of the passing game, the past couple practices with the defense missing 4 or 5 starters, what are you seeing from Caleb specifically, either on film or in the practices that tells you he's closer to getting this all to come together than we might think?
Yeah, I think for us, when you watch him and you watch him go through his reads and his progressions right there, I think going to where the ball should go is happening way more times than not. And some of the things that, haven't worked out have been just from a near miss here, or an angle that, wasn't feeling it the right way there. Okay, got it, on to the next one. But he's been doing a good job sticking within progressions, recognizing coverage structures. So seeing all those things is what really gives you the confidence moving forward.
All right, Tom, anything stick out? Anything stick out to you?
Yeah, one thing at this point, what we do have in common is neither of us have seen Hard Knocks. So I think that's something. I don't know if a coach has time really to sit down at that time of night and watch, because you're so in the middle of team meetings or, group meetings, position and coaching meetings. It's just that the understanding that the development of the offensive line is going to take time. If you have some injuries at certain positions, you got to try to allow Chris Morgan to insert the players that he believes that could play at a starter's level. And I'm glad that the Bears have a choice of talent where you can take a guy like Ryan Bates and take him from center and moving into a legitimate starting offensive guard, and then having Coleman Shelton, who can come in here and play at a high level at the starting center position. I know that the reality of it is you brought Nate Davis in here to be the starting right guard with Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones and Tevin Jenkins and such, but there's never a promise that those guys are going to be there. So I like the fact that there's competitiveness on the practice field that's going to help to decide the fate of some of these positions.
Chris Morgan met with the media today as well. Little groups, offensive assistants for the first time here in the preseason, defensive assistants next week, and he was asked a lot about that position. And he said simply, we're going to play the best 5. So there is competition. There's competition at every position, and that's how they approach it, especially here in the preseason. And so he says there's time. I know we all feel a little bit of agita, a little bit about who's not in there, but the fact of the matter is there are 3 preseason games, a preseason pre-practice against the Bengals that'll tell a lot, and then there's almost 2 weeks before the kickoff against the Tennessee Titans. So you'd like to have as many reps with each other, but they can't make it a panic scenario.
No, but right now, Jeff, Coleman Shelton at center and Ryan Bates at guard have had more reps with this offensive line than Nate Davis has at right guard and Ryan Bates at center. So I think when you look at the steps of timing and organization by an offensive line, first of all, you have to have an understanding of the rhythmic, non-rhythmic verbal cadence of Caleb Williams and how he's seeing the field and how it affects the timing of the snap. Then secondly, you have to understand the specific timing of the organization of a run block, and then the running backs need to be able to have multiple reps where they can pre-predict how the hole is going to open and where their opening is going to be created. And then thirdly is pass protection responsibilities, because it takes all 5 guys plus the tight ends, fullbacks, and the other guys to have organized pass protection to make sure Caleb Williams has the allotted amount of time to take advantage of this talented group of receivers the Bears have. So it's not just going out there and saying, okay, we need multiple practices out of you guys. We need multiple practices, multiple plays, and multiple periods of the different types of responsibilities that we all have to have an organized group of 11 players.
Tom, they're getting a lot of practice with the screen game. How important is that in terms of the continuity and chemistry? It looks to be a major part of the offense, and some well-executed screens at practice this week to all the backs, a variety of backs.
I love it, Jeff, because say, for example, you go to the Tennessee game, which is the first regular season game of the season, and you go, okay, maybe we're a little bit more secure in fast pass protection than we are with long dropbacks. So now you think of that screen game. You think of play action passing. You think of 3-step drops. So all of those can really play into the hand and assist Caleb Williams to be able to get the ball out of his hands quicker, and for the offensive line not to have to sustain blocks as long. And whenever you have athletes getting on the edge in the screen game, man, those can compute into some big gainers. And it's the same thing with play action pass and 3-step drops. So you have to make sure that you go into that first regular season game with organized, confident protection for a young quarterback.
Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. I really want to focus just on offense in this podcast because there is so much to it and so much. That's why we started with Shane Waldron. He's the guy calling the plays. He's the guy that put together the playbook, and now the execution has to come. So everybody's watching everything about Caleb Williams, and you haven't seen Hard Knocks, so hopefully you will and get some at some point you have to, right? You got to see so we could talk about it. And that's episode 1 of The Bank. But in the beginning of that episode, so much about the learning curve for Caleb Williams and reading body language and seeing his disappointment at times. But left out, in my opinion, was all the successes, though, as well. And I got to ask you from an offensive line standpoint, for those like the tackles, Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones and Tevin Jenkins at left guard and Nate Davis when he was in there at right guard, new center situation, but some of the backups like Larry Borum competing as well here, they got used to a certain way with Justin Fields, knowing he's going to probably leave the pocket more often than not. Caleb will move, but he won't necessarily be leaving the pocket. He will roll out and make a play down the sidelines at the last minute, but as an offensive lineman, how much time will it take for them to understand what Caleb's doing, or is it Caleb's responsibility to make them feel comfortable in terms of that pocket protection, even late in a snap?
It's twofold here, Jeff. First of all, I think Caleb, when he calls the protection in the huddle and then they break it towards the line of scrimmage, he has to understand the construction of the pocket. Where does his vulnerabilities lie? Where does more of a lengthy opportunity to look downfield in the protection that's up there? Then the offensive line, they have to understand specifically their body positioning to make sure they're constructing the pocket efficiently and effectively and as for the longest time possible. Caleb is not going to be a one-covered run guy. He's going to be a first option, second option, check down guy. So the longer that you can sustain that pocket, the longer Caleb is going to have to evaluate all the weapons that he sent downfield. and they're not always going to be downfield. Some of them could still be in the backfield. He's got a talented group of receivers at the backfield position that if that is where he has to go with the football, you can get as big as a play out of that as you will, being able to find one of your talented receivers downfield. But it is, these guys going hand in hand and understanding the construction of the pocket and where the most stability in that pocket is.
And they're layering in the new plays each week, adding to the arsenal that they plan on unveiling in the regular season. So some days won't look as good, some days will look better. And I do like what Nick Saban believes, and I've said it many times. Caleb Williams and all quarterbacks essentially are point guards. You're distributing the football, You're scanning the field, and especially mobile quarterbacks. And that's what he has to play. He has to set up others, and then when he needs to take a three-point shot and throw the deep ball in a clutch moment, there you go, splash, Steph Curry from deep. That's the way the play has to be.
You're exactly right. Jeff, a good analogy about being a point guard is like play action, because Shane Waldron talked about the importance of making sure they have a stable of running backs that are really good at carrying the football, offensive line that's good at its opening holes, because the most favorable protection for any offensive line and any quarterback is play action passing. And that's when you need the deception and you have the aggressive run approach by the offensive line, and then you have a more identified receiver where you're going to go with the football. So the running game is going to play an important role in the overall passing success of this football team. And that's one of the things I was really encouraged about the other night in the Hall of Fame game, is the balance of this offense is going to be equally as important as any other facet of this offense.
Vizzy Hard Seltzer, flavors for every vibe. Celebrate responsibly. Molson Coors Beverage Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Let's talk running backs, because, and I want to go individually here. We got DeAndre Swift, Travis Homer, Roschon Johnson, who's a little banged up at the moment, Khalil Herbert, Ian Wheeler is banged up and not working right now, trying to rehab whatever's bothering him, the rookie running back out of Howard. But the introduction now of Velus Jones Jr., at least this week, at the running back position. And I mean the running back position. Yeah. He is dealing with pass protection. He is dealing with swings out of the backfield. He's dealing with running the ball between the tackles, and he's dealing with running sweeps on his this zone running offense. So he's getting a taste of it all. We know what he has. He's got unique speed. He's got elite speed. He's a bigger body guy that can create a bounce off of contact. He has contact balance. We've seen that in the kick return game. He's had pass receptions that have been on the big play side of 40-plus yards in his young career. How are you looking at this? Why are they doing this? And what do you think is going to happen with this?
He's a courageous runner at the point of attack. He's willing to lower his shoulder and challenge a tackler if they don't. Some guys don't want to hit guys, and Velus is a big guy, as you mentioned. But how quickly can you get the ball into the hands of a playmaker? And that's exactly what you're doing with a guy like Velus Jones Jr. If he's lined up 5 yards behind the quarterback in the backfield, and it's a simple toss, and you get the offensive line out in front of him, and then you let him pick and choose where the hole's going to open up, that's when you give him the opportunity to the playmaker that you know he's got the ability to be. So I like the fact that they're thinking outside the box of Velus Jones Jr. and what he can offer a football team. And he also increases his opportunities to make this football team other than just a kick returner or possibly, Jeff, the fifth wide receiver on a football team. If you're the third running back on a football team, and then all of a sudden you show reliability and blitz pickup, you're increasing your value all up and down the NFL board. So I think it's I like the creativity of the Bears coaches and thinking outside the box.
And if you start with the notion now, including the NFL officials that were in talking to the media about rules changes, that they have boiled it down that the kickoff return is a running play, and Velus Jones Jr. certainly is still competing for the kick return job, and it is a running play. The way it's constituted this year, it makes a lot of sense, and frankly, the assertion that this is a bubble situation for Velus Jones, yeah, because the Bears do have depth at receiver now. The big three, unless there's an injury, are going to be on the field more often than not, And then you have Tyler Scott, and then you have many other choices. Colin Johnson's another one. So these are ways to keep a talent on the field, keep them engaged, give him a possibility he's going to get a few touches every game.
Well, this thing, don't lose the fact that Velus can line up as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
And if you need a wide receiver side, say you put Colin Johnson and Velus Jones Jr. on the same side, but they're both going to have blocking responsibility. They're both super willing to do it. They have the bigger type of bodies that can angle attack defensive backfield, and now you increase the running lane that there is to the outside. So that's what I'm saying. Velus could be considered a 4-position player, and it's a really important role in the modern day NFL game day roster.
All right, I want to get your thoughts, thumbnail on each guy as we go here. DeAndre Swift certainly is meeting and maybe surpassing expectations of what his role will be in this offense. Certainly we know he can do it. He's got finishing speed. He's got the ability to catch the football. And he looks to me, to steal the former Bear and Pittsburgh Steeler running back Merrill Hodges' term, a factor back. I believe that DeAndre Swift
Raymond Harris used to call himself the factor back.
No, he called him the ultra back. He was the ultra back. Yeah, okay. The factor back, ultra back. But anyway, what's your opinion right now?
I've really been impressed with DeAndre Swift. He's got the innate ability as a running back to understand where and how the hole's going to open up. He's got the explosiveness when he gets to the second level, that he can be physical at the third level with yards after initial contact. He's got some of the best hands at the running back position that I've seen in quite a while, because when you're breaking in a new quarterback, it's just not an easy pass to a running back. Usually you're on the move for a swing pass. You're in a position on a quick screen that the ball's going to be delivered immediately. If it's play action pass, you have to go through a play action fake, and then you have to go out in your route with awareness. So all the responsibilities of a running back outside of just being able to run the ball, DeAndre Swift has every one of them. And if he needs to pick up a blitzer, he's willing to do that. So, and I think that's probably is as important to put on notice as anything else that you can do as a complimentary running back.
He's the lightest back. And then you go to Travis Homer, Roschon Johnson. They're 221 and 231 respectively. Let's start with Roschon, obviously sideline here, but we know he's a battering ram. He is willing to take and initiate contact, and you need the change of pace. You need those types of backs to run between the tackles. Travis Homer on third down is looking like he did in Seattle. He was not used in the old system. He was not used in the last couple of years in that regard, and I thought, wow, when he came from Seattle, because he did have some moments that caught your attention as a third down back. We know he's a core special teamer and a very good one. Are you encouraged by the variety that is afforded now? Offensive coordinator Shane Waldron, who knows how to use Homer, he used him in Seattle.
Roschon Johnson has probably been the best blocking running back that the Bears have. Going to Homer, he's just got to stay healthy, Jeff. It's a matter of, this guy is one of the most physically gifted specimens on this football team, but you got to be able to stay healthy, that you have multiple days in the role that they have designed for you, and then you have to show production when your on-field opportunity comes. So listen, I'm all for Travis Homer. However, it's about making sure that you can stay healthy. And over the last couple of years that we've had an opportunity to be around him, he's missed some time with injuries. And if he can put together a stretch that he's healthy, he'll be an immediate contributor on kickoff and kickoff return, because he's capable of blocking and he's a willing tackler.
And then there's Khalil Herbert. We absolutely know what type of player we have here in Khalil Herbert, and he's working very hard out there right now, a finishing back as well, led the league in yards per carry 2 years ago. What is your opinion of Khalil Herbert right now?
He's got a significant burst. He's super thick lower body. Whenever he lowers his shoulder pads, his tackling target becomes really small, and there's always yards after initial contact. Listen, Khalil Herbert belongs in the NFL. Does he fit into this system? I hope so. But somewhere along the line, he is going to be in the NFL, and he's not an easy tackle. And he's another guy that missed a significant amount of time with an injury last year, but then kind of turned back into himself in the latter part of the year.
And of course, you have Curry Blasingame, the 6-year veteran, 6 feet, 249 pounds. We are well familiar with his game as well as special teams.
I want to see him have more opportunities to catch the ball. We've seen him make some incredible catches on wheel routes and downfield opportunities. I'm sure if you give him some screen chances with some big blockers in front of him, if you get him in the open field against a corner or a safety, he's willing to be a punishing running back. But now you talk about fullback, H-back. H-back are more tight ends. Fullbacks are exactly what they're designed to be. So there's a little bit of competition between tight ends that can play H-backs and fullbacks.
We are brought to you by PNC, official bank of the Bears, one of our partners that was in the viewing suite at Hallis Hall during practices this week. We have the privilege to speak to all these folks and their clients, other partners like Dr. Pepper and Cannon, and we don't want to miss anybody, but we've really enjoyed it. And, Tom, out of those conversations, because we don't know what we're going to talk about. It's just whatever's top of mind. We try to make them different every week, every day. But my takeaway is that everybody's excited. They feel it just like anybody else. And it's more of just it's more than hope. They believe it. And it's the way it is in the building. We all feel the same way. We have great expectations. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but I know you like doing those too. They take you down memory lane as being an 85 Bear champion. There's certainly the Hall of Fame discussion with McMichael and Hester and Peppers. How have you enjoyed those and your interactions with these fans? Because they're also very, very well educated about football.
There's a company for EGO, for example, that's in Naperville. So there's 6 degrees of separation from somebody that works in that company and people that I've grown up with. There's a girl that introduced herself there, and her roommate in college was a family that I grew up here with in Joliet. So I like meeting the fans of the Bears. But you know what? One thing that's been cool about the Bears this year, and I think it was the anticipation of last night, everybody wanted to see Hard Knocks. And because you get some exposure to the Bears through the Hall of Fame weekend, the Hall of Fame game, the daily coverage on the news that the Chicago Bears get, but now You're the prime. You're the premiere of an HBO series that's going to be, have more episodes coming up, that you get a little bit more exposure behind the scenes of Hallis Hall, just like the people that do get a chance to come into Hallis Hall and watch practice. It is a luxury, and it's a great opportunity.
Yep, they took you behind the scenes. For those of you who haven't seen it, one of the things that has made its way out on the Twitterverse and whatever is Theo Benedette. You did hear about this, correct?
Yes, I did.
Can you have imagined doing that? Did you back in the day? Did you rookies, and were you considered a rookie even though you played several years in the USFL before you joined the Bears, a couple years in the USFL? Did you have to do anything in front of the team?
So I haven't been a part of a rookie show since my freshman year at Notre Dame, and that was a nasty deal because you had to go up there as a freshman and you had to perform in front of the upperclassmen. But the upperclassmen would come in there and they would bring like a wet bag of toilet paper or some moist dinner rolls. And if you got up there and you were doing something that they didn't like,
you were pelted.
You got pelted.
So what'd you do? Or can you say it?
No, it was something. We made up a song to my wiener has a first name. It's OSCAR, and the Oscar Mayer song. But we made it up using the coaches' names.
Oh,
and
okay.
A group of us mimicked the habits of the coaches that we barely knew at that point. And so luckily we had a good response from the upperclassmen, and we did get pelted, not that badly. But the thing about it is after the rookie show, all the freshmen have to stay around and clean up the meeting room.
Oh my gosh. So, knowing you, I know you dreaded having to get up there and do something like that.
Well, I did dread it, but I didn't mind it because I was going up there with a couple of my other classmates at that point, Mark Zavagnin and Bob Clasby, and a couple of other guys that I was just getting to know. So
how'd you avoid it in '85?
I wasn't a rookie.
Wow. You,
I was
you,
not- I-
you
I told
dodged
him.
a bullet, didn't you?
Yeah, someone said, get in the cafeteria, stand in the chair and sing, and I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not a rookie.
Nice. Tastes like Miller time. Go to MillerLite.com/BearsPod to find delivery options near you. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Let's listen in to Bears rookie wide receiver Rome Odunze at the podium this week about his progress so far.
Right. I think I'll just try and take a lot. I just try to take in, every route that they run and what they see on different coverages. They probably annoy with me all the things that I ask them about, but yeah, I try and gain as much information as I can as possible. But sometimes I look back, I'm like, man, I'm not even gonna ask a question about that. Like whatever he did right there, that's something special for him. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that you garner too. Like sometimes I watch Keenan, sometimes I watch DJ, and they do things. I'm like, okay, I don't know if that's in my playbook. I'm gonna have to figure out a different way to get the route done because they're special in that way. They have such unique traits to be able to do so many different things and comfortability to get open on any given route. So just learning those things and learning the different nuances that they do within a route and catching the ball that I try and emulate. But got to find my own style within that as well.
What was your reaction to DJ's extension?
Oh man, that's crazy. You know what I mean? I was super happy. Just the minimal time that we've got to spend with each other. He's been a great mentor for me, and a great ambassador of this organization and this league as a whole. Great person on and off the field, and a great player as well. So to me, I was like, ecstatic. I think he's the first player to have his first 10 years guaranteed, right, or something like that. Man, that's huge. To have that happen, and he deserves it all. Honestly, he's I think he's continued to be underrated in this league. I think if you turn on the tape and see what he's capable of doing, it's tremendous. So I'm glad that they finally got it settled.
Well, you came in pretty confident for this season, but anything you've seen or done in the first couple weeks or 2+ weeks of practice that have given you even more confidence that you can come in here and make an impact immediately? Anything you've learned, anything that you didn't know, just.
I think all the skill sets that I kind of learned in college, like there's nothing that like kind of that I've gone against that was like it's tough and it's competitive for sure, but there's nothing out there where it's like, man, this is gonna be too much to overcome or something like that. Like it's just different levels of competition and different athleticism levels and people knowing where they're supposed to be at when they're supposed to be there, especially defenses and coverage and zone coverage, man coverage. They know their responsibilities. So I wouldn't say it's anything like unexpected. It's just more heightened and more detailed within any given play. Coach Grubb, my old coordinator, used to say, be the signal, not the distraction. And, there's a bunch of signals on this team, guys who, are the beacon for people and a bunch of, signals and beacons out there in the world that, they radiate that energy, that sound, that noise, and focusing on those things I think is most important. And of course, the number one beacon being God. Anything you do playing through him and going towards his light, you'll probably be all right.
You were talking about the special things that Keenan does. What are some of the things that you see him do that make you just say,
oh man, Keenan, man. First of all, like him moving around at like his size is just crazy. Like his explosiveness, his agility, his route deception, his speed deception, acceleration, all those different nuances within the route. He's mastered it, and it's so many subtle things within the route that he does that it takes a very keen eye to even notice the things that he's doing, and obviously no one's figured it out yet because they still can't guard him. So one of the most impressive things is his cuts too. Like he can cut on his outside foot, he can cut on his inside foot, and he's staying off the grass and is able to maintain his balance every single time. So I think that's something that's very unique to him. But yeah.
You're learning from Keenan and DJ. What's been the thing that just in this short time you've been able to add to your game that you feel you didn't have last season?
Oh, I think, especially within man coverage, the nuances of that route. We got a good bit of man coverage at UW, but, I think learning from them there, always trying to make things look vertical. And that was a point that, wide receiver coaches in my past, have emphasized as well. But at this point in the league, at this, level in the league, everybody's fast. You know what I mean? The difference between speed is, milliseconds, or, however little it was. Noah Lyles won that the other day. That's, the speed difference at this level. So you got to have, speed, in and out of breaks and, always threatening to go deep. And that puts defenders in a bind.
He continues to impress me, Tom, his intelligence about the game. He speaks like a veteran, frankly. He's learning a ton from Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and everybody else, and I think he's going to flit like a slipper. It's gonna be a nice added bonus for the Bears here in 2024.
I think he comes from a good competitive college working atmosphere, so the jump to the NFL isn't too big for him. He understands that he can gain a lot of knowledge from the veteran receivers that he's working with. He understands that he's been developing a really good friendship with Caleb Williams, and he knows how important each of their development is step by step together is going to be how it plays out on this football team and throughout his career. And, Rome's a cool guy to listen to at the podium. You can hear the youthfulness in his approach and the way he answers questions. However, he respects the veterans that he's around and what he can take from each one of these guys.
And he's an inch taller and 6 pounds heavier, at least on paper, than Keenan Allen, who has got a really strong lower half of his body that clearly helps him play his position at the level he does, and his ability to explode out of his routes, even at 11 years deep into his NFL career. So great guy to learn from. Anything else that sticks out in that conversation with Rome Odunze?
I just think it's important when you are so congratulatory about the way they went about showing DJ Moore the love with giving him a new contract. And it's not envy, it's respect and understanding that, he says, now this is 10 years of guaranteed contract for a veteran like DJ Moore. But he also understands that it's out of performance and it's out of what you've been able to do as a player in the NFL that's got you to this point. And I think that's a nice reflection to have from a rookie that's just come aboard from a group of receivers that are so talented and respected that have Hall of Fame credentials. So I just like the fact that these guys are going to play an important role in the way we're talking about Rome Odunze in 3 or 4 years and where he's at in his career.
I want to go to the offensive line, and I want to touch on a guy who has yet to practice, and that is Kiran Amegadjie, the third-round pick. Chris Morgan, the Bears' run game coordinator and offensive line coach, was asked about him, if he's going to be able to get into a training camp practice here before the regular season. He says he hopes so, and he's very, very excited about Kiran Amegadjie. Potential tackle candidate here, also can play guard from Yale, quad tear last October, recovering from that. But he's doing well in his rehab. He is getting stronger, he says, in the weight room, and he is very attentive and understands the playbook in the classroom and what the assignments are. So he's very excited about this player. Are you?
Jeff, there's 2 guys on this offensive line that are only one position player, and that's Braxton Jones, the left tackle, and Darnell Wright, the right tackle. Every other single person that we're talking about that are on the field are playing multiple positions, even Tevin Jenkins, right guard, left guard. So when you look at a guy like Amegadjie, who's going to wear number 72 jersey, he's got the template of an offensive lineman that you could put in there and play at multiple positions. And whether it's from center to tackle, he can line up at every one. And I'm going to be interested, as much as Chris Morgan is, when they finally do get him in pads, to see how he makes that transition from the Ivy League to the NFL. Other guys have done it successfully, and I expect Amegadjie to do it successfully as well. But super intelligent, a really good athlete. Get him some work in and see how he fits in, and where do you determine him to fit the best.
Tom, we got to talk about the hip drop tackle. I know it's something that you were outspoken about a year ago when it became a discussion point because of injuries. Frankly, it was taught once upon a time to tackle that way, and now it's going to be something that's going to draw you a flag. And even if it's not called on the field, upon review by the league, if it's considered and checks 3 boxes on the list of reasons why it'd be called a hip drop tackle, you will be fined after the game, even if you didn't get a flag in the game for this. It's a tricky thing at the moment. It's a bit subjective at times, but not if 3 factors, and that is the way you leave your feet, and roll on the back of the legs of a player while you're bringing him down to the ground. A hip drop tackle. Your thoughts on this? The referees explained it in great detail this week up at Hallis Hall.
Very sad for the game of football that they take such a reactionary game, a reactionary position, and they say there's a guy up in the booth that can make the determination that I'm going to fine you after the fact because the player you went to tackle didn't stop. And so as he's carrying his momentum to try to gain yards after contact, you happen to have your body that goes to his backside as you're bringing him to the ground. If you want to do that, then tell the defensive player, all right, you stop as soon as you make contact with the defensive player. I think it's a little ridiculous. Just like all the other changes that they've made in the NFL, they think they're making it to make the game safer. That's ridiculous because now you have players that may be slowing down because they're already thinking, oh, I can't make this a hip drop tackle. Oh, I don't want to get fined in an enormous amount of money. And it's like I said, it's a reactionary game, and I think it's unfair what you're doing to the game.
I hope I explained it correctly. It's the swiveling of the hips. It's dragging down, and then if your legs, ankle, or foot are trapped, that is considered. So they got to check 3 boxes. Now, Coach Eberflus, when we talked about this in our podcast during the season last year, he doesn't coach that. His is a hamstring tackle, so the ability to attack face up and get yourself in a position and staggered feet to drive yourself into the ball carrier. So that's how he teaches it. He doesn't teach it any other way. But yeah, I mean, I didn't play the game, so you take the
So we're going to play hypothetical Jeff and Tom. And a hypothetical Jeff his name is Jeff Zonka. And my name is Tom Singletary. And Jeff Zonka is carrying the football, and I'm in an open field position, and between you and the goal line is me, this linebacker. So now as you put your head down to gain the extra yards after contact, as I absorb that punishing hit by Jeff Zonka, my body kind of swings around, and that's the only thing that I'm doing is holding on to you for dear life, and then all of a sudden you fall forward and my body falls on the back of you. So now I'm going to get penalized for that instead of saying, okay, Jeff Zonka, don't lower your head. As soon as you've seen me facing you up, and you stop and lay down right there, and then we'll do it like rugby. We'll put the ball down, go to a scrum. So I'm just whether you teach it or you don't teach it, the instantaneousness of contact is unpredictable. So called me old and all that, but Larry Zonka, Pete Johnson, Tony Dorsett, Walter Payton, Earl Campbell, Adrian Peterson, all these types of guys that
Derrick Henry.
It's an emergency situation when you're trying to tackle these guys. Even the Barry Sanders, you can't stay in a perfect tackling position when you tackle Barry Sanders. Walter Payton's going to drive his helmet right into your chest and run you over, just like Earl Campbell did in the highlight against the Rams. So just the instantaneousness of football, and you're trying to make a post evaluation of a tackle.
Yeah, well, we went through this discussion when they started with the helmet to helmet, and how often that happens. And I raised a question to those guys yesterday, and I said, how many because the running backs could also, anybody who initiates contact with the crown of their helmet, including a running back who's trying to get him maybe into the end zone, he lowers his head and it happens to be helmet-to-helmet contact, you could get flagged. And I wondered how many running backs, and he couldn't answer that question because I haven't seen much of it. And but, he says people have adjusted, and that's the point they were trying to make is, now they didn't come up with this rule. It's the competition committee, obviously, in the name of health. And So they've changed. They've altered the way this is now being approached, and they haven't seen a preponderance of helmet to helmet anymore.
Well, all these rule changes could be made by a lot of guys that have never played football before, and it doesn't going to change my mind, and I'm going to agree with it. I still think, football, like Ditka said, football is a collision sport. It's not a contact sport. And so when you challenge the courage and the courageousness of offensive and defensive players, sometimes that contact is not pretty. But, it is what it is, and I guess changes will be made. I would be furious, though, Jeff, if I got a fine slip. I showed up on a Wednesday, and I get a fine slip because some guy up in the booth determined that I made a hip drop tackle.
Vizzy Hard Seltzer, flavors for every vibe. Celebrate responsibly. Molson Coors Beverage Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. All right, let's look at the Buffalo Bills. I'm not sure who they're going to play. Again, early taping here before the game. Bears leave on Friday, play on Saturday at noon in Orchard Park. And the fans, they love it out there. They're crazy fanatics. They will be loud and proud, even in a preseason game, and it'll be fun to see. That's a perennial, a division contending team in the AFC East that has not been able to get over the hump with the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC and the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC. So a tough AFC. You know who the premier teams are in that AFC. Throw the Miami Dolphins in there as well with their speed at receiver but how do you feel about playing the Bills? And you'll be seeing a lot of Mitch Trubisky, the former Bears quarterback.
They're a premier football team in the AFC, considered a real Super Bowl contender with one of the top 3 to 5 quarterbacks in the NFL and Josh Allen. They're on the cusp of building a new stadium. So when you're talking about the Buffalo Bills, it's a unique atmosphere to go into play. They support their team in the preseason as well as the regular season. So when you talked about the communication inside the stadium, it's going to be more difficult than it was at the Hall of Fame game or what they faced at practice. There's a kind of a coach that may be on the hot seat already, that these guys better perform, and they better perform from the beginning of preseason into the regular season. And like you said, we don't know who's going to play, but I would imagine that they're going to have starters that are going to be out there unless there's an injury scenario that we're not aware of yet.
Yeah, they've had to get younger on defense because they paid Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs is gone. They made a trade, obviously, with the Houston Texans for that. But the big safeties that made such a dramatic impact on that defense are gone. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde no longer the safeties. So younger guys moving up the chain. And at some point when you're paying your quarterback that kind of money, that's going to happen. Von Miller trying to work himself back after a year last year where he played 11 games, did not have a sack coming off ACL the year before, Tommy.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that I wouldn't expect to play. If I'm the head coach or if I'm the GM of the Buffalo Bills, Von Miller is not going to see the field most likely until the regular season. However, they have some other pass rushers and defensive linemen that you have to be concerned about. And when you talk about roles changing on a defense, you're going to see some guys out there that are going to be flying around because they're going to be fighting for the respect of their coaches so they can climb up that ladder of being considered a starter instead of a backup.
All right, that's going to wrap us up. We're brought to you by PNC, official bank of the Bears, and by Miller Lite. Tommy, we'll talk to you next week on the podcast, but we'll talk to you Saturday afternoon from Buffalo. Special thanks to you for listening, and please subscribe now on the Chicago Bears official app, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And Tom, homework assignment, find a way. Go see episode 1 of Hard Knocks.
I'll come over to your house. I don't have HBO.
You're welcome anytime. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bear down.